Hey everybody, welcome to the craziness. We were just waiting for some people to show up, and then all of a sudden, everybody was there. So, thank you guys for coming in, and we're gonna get this all kicked off. Tonight, I have talking with me ImaraRavenfire, who is also a Twitch streamer and a role player and a storyteller, a one of many talents. Imara,
You're being awfully nice, Cal.
hey, I'm being a pleasurable host, I hope.
I mean, this is the nicest I've ever been introduced before, so I appreciate it.
Hey,
Of
nah.
all of the 3 podcasts I've ever been on.
Fair enough. But to start us out, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? In terms of a storyteller, in terms of a player, what type of things do you primarily like to run?
Well, if we're talking about just genre systems, I'm an old WoD girl, so I love me some Wraith, I love Werewolf, I love Vampire. Never actually got to play in a live-action KOE game, or KOE at all, actually. That's a failing on my end. Demon was fun for what little I played it. Mage is fun. I've enjoyed L5R. So, I'm a woman of many tastes. But primarily, Old World of Darkness is where I started when it came to, live action.
Fair enough. What is your favorite system to run?
Favorite system to run? In order, it would probably go Wraith, Werewolf, Vampire.
Okay.
With a focus on Sabbat with Vampire, because Cam can get a little...
A little what? Enlighten us a little bit on that. What's your opinion on camera roll games?
Cam can get really hard to run. Because eventually it stops being personal horror and just starts being politics, until literally your game is nothing but a graveyard of people sitting around on Elysium talking and ignoring all the plot you throw at them. Unless it literally comes and blows up Elysium.
All right, so on that type of vein then, is there, say somebody's new to running Vampire and they're kind of on the fence between going with, Camarilla or Sabbat or Anarch, with those different type of Sabbat genres, do you, when you've run them, do you approach to setting mood or a theme for them differently?
You kind of have to be honest. You cannot approach a Camarilla game the same way you would approach a Sabbat game. Anarch, you could approach similar to Sabbat if you really wanted a, punch it in the face and get it the hell out of my town game. Or you could approach it like a Cam, where it's okay, well, we don't like the current Baron, so whisper, 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 okay, let's take him out. Where it can kind of go both ways there. But for Cam, you almost exclusively have to focus on player plot. You can't really focus on something overarching, because eventually it's just going to become, oh, we don't like the prince. Oh, we don't like this primogen. Oh, we don't like so-and-so. So we're going to be vampires and go fucking kill them and not get caught, because that's the 7th tradition that nobody talks about.
Do you think that's different between live action and tabletop, though?
It can be. I mean, when it comes to tabletop, a lot of it comes down to who's around your table.
Okay.
Versus, a LARP where you have swaths of people, some of them you've never even met, showing up because they heard, oh, there's this local game, I'm gonna go play it because I haven't played in X amount of time.
So aside from this idea of it being obviously Cam's a little more individual based, and Sabbat having a bit more violence and deadly politics involved.
Well, and on top of it, you can do a lot more plot with the Sabbat, because Sabbat are supposed to be, if you go by genre, very proactive. They're not reactive. It's not like the Camp.
Okay.
Where you're waiting for something to blow up, and then you have to go and use your influence and cover it up, and then go investigate, okay, who blew this thing up? With the Sabbat, you know damn well who blew something up, because they usually tell you they did it. Usually.
Fair enough. Do you think that there's a difference in how you approach making a character with a player for Sabbat versus Camarilla or Anarch?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. So a lot of what I have seen through my various years running Sabbat games is people try to build for survivability, right? They don't so much, initially when they're first learning, they don't so much build for, I have this really cool concept in mind and this is what I want to go for. They build for, okay, how do I do well in combat? How do I do well if somebody challenges me to Monmancy, if they even know what Monmancy is? How do I get around ex-Camarilla member who has fleetness, aegis, and passants? How do I survive that? usually that's how it starts. Or like, I'm gonna just build this big beefy brouhaha beat stick because I just want to go and punch things in the face. Whereas Cam is usually more, this is what I want to do, this is who the character is, yada yada yada. But a lot of that comes down to the players knowing the system as well as the ST, or at least close to as well as the ST.
Right, and so a lot of what I'm hearing so far, a lot of LARP concerns, right, for running Sabbat and LARP and making characters for Sabbat in like a LARP game. Do you feel that
for a tabletop game, it should never be a question. It should always be based around story.
Well,
do you want to build in survivability? Sure, but at the same time, you need to build for story if you're doing a around the table game.
Why do you think that's different than in LARP?
Because when it comes to around the table, you know the storyteller or the DM or the GM or whatever you want to call them has an idea and has a theme in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, say I'm going to run a Sabbat game, right? And I tell you guys, your job is to go from Rockford and take over Chicago. So the idea is a siege.
Right.
You can now build around the idea of a siege while working together as a singular pack versus a LARP where it's open to everybody. So you're going to have several different packs wanting to do several different things. And then the occasional, like, brand new PC who's not part of a pack going, hi guys, I'm new to the Sabbat in the area. And it just kind of, it can sometimes throw a monkey wrench into everything.
What do you think serves Sabbat best as a genre then? Do you think it's better for tabletop or LARP?
Honestly, that's debatable. It depends on the group you're playing with. Much like normal games, like CAM games, it depends on the group you play with. Okay. Generally speaking, I prefer to see Sabbat as a LARP because you have that interdynamic of several different packs coming together and you still get the politics without having to make 20 different packs because they're already there.
So in that type of situation, I have a question then, because for those who aren't familiar with like running live action games, you're telling a story for dozens, a dozen or more players at a time. You usually,
as opposed to 5 or 6 like you would around a table.
Right. You usually bring other people on to act as like adjudicators for rules, like narrators, things of that nature. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Russ. And hello, Cat Wow.
That would be Chris.
I know. I love the Cat Wow. That's all I'm saying.
It's your emote.
But with that...
Hi, guys. I don't do magic, Morty.
Oh,
I do science.
my God.
One takes brains, the other takes dark eyeliner.
It's a very nice little cheer. Thank you very much, Thug. As those who have seen last week, Thug was our guest last week there. So I was about to say before we got that, the question I have is, you mentioned that some of the stuff with Camarilla that you see a lot is that people get bored and they just stop playing. It's not so much about personal horror, but in a live action game with like 15, 20 Sabbat players, how do you bring like a horror aspect to the game as opposed to when you're working tabletop? Tabletop, you can do one-on-one time.
Sorry.
No problem. You can do one-on-one time. You can do small group stuff that's a lot easier for you to maneuver and have time for during the session than live action, where you're splitting your attention up to 5 or 6 different groups at once. I guess in LARP, how do you maintain a level of horror? Like, or is that even a focused? Do you default to more action or stay with the horror?
It can be very horrifying. I mean, to be fair, for those of you who don't know over in chat, Kalthus has story told with me in Sabbat. And generally what I prefer to do as a storyteller is have a few extra storytellers with me.
One takes brains, the other takes dark eyeliner.
Another nice cheer. Thank you, Russ, for the cheers.
You're getting all the biddies tonight.
Yeah, we're going to open up to some questions here in just a minute, Cruel Storyteller. No, I was just painted very badly.
That is not true. I painted myself as the cruel storyteller, and I did it purposely because I'm the vindictive one.
I think I killed more players, but that's just me.
That's because you had a larger group. We already talked about this.
But on that, running for all these people and trying to maintain horror, how do you function with that?
A lot of it comes down to, like I said, having multiple STs. So, like, if I have a game of 10 people, right, I generally try to have a secondary ST who can handle things like larger group scenes while I take off a few players or a small pack because they want to go off and do X, Y, or Z.
Right.
Like, you yourself know this because you took an idea that I had of the BSD kinfolk running basically a body chop shop, and you fucking ran with it with 3 people while I was handling everybody else that was staying on the E-spot.
Right.
And it became like a world of just fucking crazy that night, but we kept it scary because it was just this small group off
Right.
doing this thing, and it was, well, what is this? What is this? Oh my god, why am I suddenly getting blasted with fire out of fucking nowhere? I can't even see what's attacking me.
Yeah.
So it can very much be that way, or you can also look into, and it comes down to, again, knowing your genre, you can look into the subsects within the Sabbat and be able to pull in, okay, well, some people have screwed up and they think they're going to get away with it. I'm pulling the Black Hand. Or they're all too comfortable and think they know everything there is to know about Cain. Hey, let's throw some Bahari out there.
Right.
And it just becomes a very small, like, insidious thing that you can just weave into the game with barely anybody noticing most of the time. And it becomes a moment of true horror when they start tumbling down that rabbit hole and suddenly realize that, oh shit, I fucked up.
Right. On that though, talking about like weaving all this stuff together and how crazy like a game of a larger size can get, especially in LARP, can you think of a time you really fucked up as a storyteller while running Sabbat, tabletop or live action? Like it's we have a host.
The midwinter that I was part of the Sabbat team, because
Well, no,
a lot of that.
So here's how I'd put it. Right, we all make mistakes while we're running, right? So we've all made a lot. If some are coming in, and seeing like STs who are gotten to like this level of being comfortable with their genre, comfortable with dealing with other players, comfortable in playing NPCs, and sometimes it can look kind of daunting. Like people don't fuck up behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So
we do. We do. Don't ever let anybody tell you guys.
Oh no,
that we don't fuck up. We fucking do.
We certainly do. We certainly do. But if you could pick one fuck up you made as to make like an object lesson to somebody, what would it be?
When allowing, so say you're doing this, we're going to go with the org setting because that's the most recent one I've got.
Right.
Actually, no. No, it's not even the org setting.
Is it the troop one I'm thinking of?
Uh-huh.
Okay. The semi.
Never, ever, ever let your players fill the back of a goddamn semi-truck with 20 fucking neonate hunger frenzying Malkavians and send it through Navy Pier.
Yeah, that was a beautiful masquerade breach right there. Real nice breach. That was not a
masquerade breach. That was like a breach of everything, because there were fucking werewolves there were hunters, there were mages, there were cam vampires that he was targeting. And it was just, that was the stupidest idea that I ever let fucking through. And that is saying something, because I have had some stupid ideas in the past, but that one was the fucking worst.
So, what do you...
Point, it was 11 o'clock at night and I was fucking tired.
If you could wrap that explosion of insanity into like one brief statement for a new ST, what would it be?
Learn to fucking say no.
I think
learn it quickly.
I think that's one of the most valuable things to learn. I would say I think my biggest fuck up as a storyteller, for anything, particularly live action though, would have to be arguing with players in front of other players.
Yeah, I mean, generally that does cause a lot of problems amongst a group.
Yeah,
that one, yeah.
It doesn't
matter whether you're doing it at game or you're doing it afters. It can definitely become, as we experienced, an issue.
Oh yeah. So in that case, I would say to any new STs, I would probably, if you have an issue, pull the person aside either once the scene's wrapped, or if it's that bad, like, hey, can we talk for a second, just so we're on the same page? Pull them off and then talk. It's just like being a manager for retail, right? You never ever chastise an employee on the floor. You always do it in private, right? So I think that if you're going to have a sit down with a player about their behavior or about attitude, whatever it is you want to talk to them about, pull off the side. And I've gone round for round with people, like right in front of other players, and just been like, you're wrong. You got to stop this behavior, and it really messes with morale all around. And that's I think my biggest one. So if I were to wrap that into a little bow, I'd say don't ever argue with other players in front of other players. Take it to private.
And if I could offer a third piece of advice to new starting out STs, if you kill one of your PCs, right, check in with the player. Make sure they're all good. If you happen to be in a tabletop setting, you can, or not a tabletop, a LARP setting, you can do what I did. Buy them a drink.
Well,
Say,
if
hey,
they're
no
of
hard
age.
feelings, had a great run.
If they're of age.
Well, no, actually, I've bought sodas for underage people.
Fair
I've been
enough.
like, hey, you had a great run. Good job. Let's talk about your next concept. And
Right.
it kind of softens the blow a little bit, especially if they were really attached to the character. Because some people do get very, very attached to characters.
Fair enough. I'm going to definitely open things up to any questions that anybody viewing wants to have. We'll get to those as they pop up. But there are a couple things that I've kind of got on my hot plate that I like talking about when it comes to Sabbat. And I'm curious to get some of your thoughts about. So, yeah.
Start typing your questions, people. Save me.
So
Save me.
I think one of the biggest things I see with Sabbat that kind of takes a Sabbat game off the rails real quick.
Are you about to say the M word?
No.
Thank God.
Is that players often, especially in a LARP setting, because I think in a LARP setting it gets kind of contagious, players think of Sabbat as nothing but just endless, I'm going to tear things up, break the masquerade, just eat whatever's in my way, and just kill everything in my path. It's going to be this crazy, just fest of carnage nonstop.
Yeah, this balls to the wall. We're monsters for the sake of being monsters. All the fucking time. We're evil. Oh my God, let's do the most horrible shit we possibly can.
Right, and people kind of use that idea of the Spot being bad guys and they're not pretending to be human as kind of a catch-all. You can do everything you want to and not ever get in trouble for it.
You've hit my pet peeve button.
Yeah, Near Dark 24/7. Near Dark 24/7 with something less cool than Bill Paxton.
You did buy me the drink the night that I killed you, Russ. I did offer you a drink though.
Yeah, so let's see. We got some
That was
comments.
Russ's way of telling us that it was okay and he was chill with it.
Fair enough.
So everybody knows.
We got Chris saying Near Dark 24/7. Thug says, yeah, combat has its place, but it's only maybe 10%, and those are normally packs still falling or freshly fallen, and they normally die out, get smart, and stop doing it. Yeah, but the problem is when you
that's
get
not always true.
when you get
You have
players,
a large enough LARP group, that's not always true.
right? But even in a tabletop setting, if you have players that come in with that mindset, how do you redirect that into more genre appropriate carnage? Because it exists.
So
let's make no
thing
doubt.
that I drill into my player's head at the start, right? First word off the go. Sabbat are not monsters for the sake of being monsters. Sabbat are monsters because they're right. It's not carnage for the sake of causing carnage. It's carnage with a purpose. So if you are going out and you are just slaughtering people because you can, you fucked up somewhere, son, and you are about to have an inquisition up your ass.
Fair enough. So you bring this up to them. You try to get them hey, it's not just violence for the sake of violence. You're not just killing for the sake of killing. There's actually a purpose for it.
You're literally in a holy war.
Right. If they were to ask you well, then what's it all about? How do I look this up? Where would you point somebody? What direction would you set them in to kind of get an eye?
I hate to say this because every ST says it, and it's driven me crazy over the years until I eventually sat down and actually fucking did it. But read your books, and don't just read the Sabbat books.
Right.
Read the Cam books. Read the Anarch books. Read the city-based books. Pick up, if you can find them, find a copy of the Book of Nod. Find a copy of the Revelations of the Dark Mother. Find a copy of the Heresies fragments.
Those are heretical. Anyways.
Yes, they're heretical, but they give you the player, except for the Book of Nod, actually. That's not heretical.
No,
Unless
but the
you're
other
looking
ones
at-
are.
Yes, the other ones are.
The
But
Revelations.
If you can look at all three of those and piece them all together, because they do go together, it'll show you the bigger picture that the antediluvians that the Camarilla swears up and down don't exist. No, they're here. They're real. They exist. And if you read the Heresies fragments, you start getting pieces of the prophecies that when they wake up, they're going to eat each and every one of us.
Right. I think what I've usually done is when a player comes to me or I see a player that's doing this and falling down this rabbit hole, I purposely start throwing plots at them that they can't beat up.
That's another good way to do it.
I make them kind of step outside that like comfort zone of I'm a combat character, I have all this awesome combat stuff. That's great. That's really cool. So we're gonna throw.
Now do something where you have to investigate something.
Right,
We're gonna just kill it.
We're throwing investigations at you. We're gonna throw influence pot at you. We're gonna throw like the unpredictable nature of the Camarilla that it can be sometimes. Because let's be honest, if the Sabbat, genre-wise, could just steamroll the cam with sheer numbers and violence, they would have done it a long time ago. But because the cam is so proactive with influence and other methods of control, they have a huge issue with it. Yes, sometimes these things devolve into those stereotypical fights and massive combats between Archons and Templars, but really on the whole, most of that conflict is behind the scenes, killing off assets, getting rid of like holdings, erasing the stronghold of the cam so the Sabbat can actually siege in numbers and actually hunt down people like with actual targets that they can actually go after. But that takes a long time to get there.
I remember having this discussion when we first started the pack that you and I were part of.
Well, right, because our whole purpose was that influence game version. We were the subverters,
We were the sneaky motherfuckers who'd go into a city first and start picking apart what they had.
Right, and I think that's a part that's kind of missed in Sabbat because that's something that every Sabbat has to do is when a Sabbat comes to town and tries to take over a city, they have to deal with influence. They may not have a lot themselves, but they have to find a way to work around it and deal with it.
Yeah. And find a way to get their message out there to cause more of a problem for the camp.
Right, and I mean there are some packs that actually will work with influence, but it is rare in the Sabbat. It's not
very
often.
few and far between.
Usually it's the retainers, especially like Lasombra and Zamisi, right?
Oh yeah.
But and Ventru, obviously. But the thing is,
depends on your Sabbat Ventru, but yeah.
Well, Ventru are those still crusading kings in the Sabbat. They're just not the merchant class, so they'll still work with retainers.
If you manage to get the ones that are willing to do that and are not just Bruja light.
I think that kind of misses the point about Ventru anti-tribute.
I don't disagree with you.
Like if you're playing a Ventru anti like Bruja light, I think you're missing the point. Because
I don't disagree.
Anyone can be a beat stick.
Yep.
But a Ventru is a leader beat stick. Like you are a battlefield commander. Like
yeah.
Yeah, well no,
I know, Jeff.
Well,
they're not Bruja light, but I have seen more played as Bruja light than I can actually state. Any of them were played like Lasombra light or a field general.
But
it's very sad. It's
very
like
sad.
One of the worst things ever. It's like watching somebody who plays a Malkavian anti-tribute as someone who's just completely batshit balls to the wall crazy serial killer. And I'm going, okay, why aren't you in the cam? Because you can literally do this in the fucking cam.
Well, it's a played out, trope. But I mean, for me, Ventru anti-tribute when I play them, or when I have them NPCs, regardless, play an NPC, whatever it is. When I make a Ventru anti-tribute, I'm making somebody who's a tactician, who leads from the front of battle. And who's like usually honorable accord. I think honorable accord's my favorite path for Ventru Anti. And
I was about to say, do not tell me that's your favorite path because I will call you a fucking liar right here, right now.
Oh no, it's not my favorite path, but I think it's my favorite one for Ventru Anti because it makes them or Piv. But Piv, when you do Piv, you start
so overplayed.
You start crossing into Lasombra territory because I feel like Piv is really like Lasombra ideals personified.
Or you can pull it off with a Zamise. You could pull off Piv with a Zamise.
Yeah, but I think there are other paths that are more suitable for Zamise. And actually,
Metamorphosis is literally their path.
I hate Matt.
I know you do.
I hate Matt.
I know.
So speaking of paths, as a new storyteller to Sabbat, paths can be the hardest. Yeah, you don't have somebody. That's not path. Okay, so for those who are watching, Russ mentioned that
No, that's not Piv at all. Piv does not mean you are trying to grasp power for the sake of stupidity.
Well, he brings up as long as you don't have someone summoning magma in the middle of Rockford, which was actually happened in a game that we ran, and it was ridiculous. That person was on Path of Met, didn't play Path of Met.
No, not at all.
Not
even close.
Right. We're not going to bring up anything else about it. It's just the path wasn't properly played in my opinion.
Nor was it ever properly enforced with the player to begin with.
Right, and that becomes a different type of problem. But while we're on this path situation, I think paths for a new storyteller can be very daunting, right? Because humanity is easy to play, even low humanity, relatively. But when you start playing a path, you're like really kind of looking at this examination of a whole alien like landscape of thought, right? Yeah. Your value systems change, your virtues change. You're more of a creature of instinct at this point for most paths, anyways.
It's not even a matter of your virtues change, right? Because that's putting into a mechanical standpoint.
Well, it has to be considered on both ends because the virtues kind of signify the way your character reacts to different stimuli, right?
But the way I like to do it as an ST, because I'm familiar with a vast swath of the paths. I'm not going to say I'm familiar with literally all of them because I'm not.
Right.
There are paths, there are fucking roads, there are roads off of the roads, and it is very daunting.
Yeah.
If I'm going to give advice to a new storyteller who's coming into Sabbat the first time, just read the paths in the book and stick to those. Like for your first run through, fucking everybody sticks to that. I don't care who shows up at your game and says, oh, well, I found this road in this book and blah, blah, blah. I don't care.
Okay.
Stick to those paths because otherwise you are going to get lost, dazed, and confused faster than you can believe.
Fair enough.
And when it comes down to it, the way I look at it is, yes, you have those tenets, right? You have those things that like, okay, here are the cardinal sins amongst this path. And a lot of that I actually put more on myself than I expect to put on the players, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
What do you mean?
It's my job to point out that, hey, that's against your path.
Okay. Yeah.
Versus where I expect a player to understand, because a player is going to read a lot more of the flavor text than just the mechanics, unless they're a power gamer and then we don't talk about it.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's storytelling Sabbat for the first time about paths? Like, should they allow them? Should they stick on humanity? Like, how do you think they should, prep for that?
If you're going to roll Sabbat for the very first time, like you have never picked this up before, you have never considered running it before, maybe you haven't read all the books, stick to humanity at first. But as the game grows, you're going to read more. You're an ST. You have to. There's no getting around that. You have to put in the work, which is oftentimes a thankless job, and yes, we know. But as you start to read, you can start seeing where the characters are starting to go, because they're not going to stay on humanity long. The second they Diablerize someone, it's basically game over. They're going to either have to have another path, or they're going to assail, and you're going to have the Sabbat kill them because they don't like those either.
Right. I think that's pretty solid advice for somebody coming in brand new. Stick to humanity while you're starting out, because honestly, a lot of fledgling Sabbat before they become like true Sabbat, you're still on low humanity. Even some Sabbat, a lot of Sabbat are still on low humanity, but you usually
you get shovel-headed and you're human. There's no I'm getting shovel-headed and I'm joining Path of Cain immediately. That's not how that works.
Right. There is some time that you degrade your humanity. You're being taught your path, etc. So Thug here says paths are very much advanced in play. If you're brand new, I'd never let you on a path. I would do low humanity and have you work towards a path by actually learning about it in game before you're ever part of it. So I agree with that for players. Yeah. I mean more towards STs. Like if I were brand new to running Sabbat, how would I handle it? And I think that working with your players on humanity and learning their paths really kind of helps you learn them too. But if all things were being equal, I would say do prep work first. Read all those paths. Yeah. The ones that you're comfortable with, allow them to have access to. Really the best. Yeah. Because I think that comfortability, especially in a Sabbat game, comfortability is very, very, very important. Like, you have to be comfortable with the way this particular path is run. There may be paths that you're not comfortable having in your game because either they're super foreign and alien, or you just don't think they're appropriate for the story you're telling. So, like, not every Sabbat game. I've never allowed
the path, what is that? Oh, God, it's the one that Bali can be on.
Hive?
Yeah. I've never allowed Path of Hive in any Sabbat game ever.
Right. There are some paths that are appropriate.
I can't.
You're not going to see a Sabbat member on a Bali path without really, 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 really fucking good reason.
Evil Revelations is the other one. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Nor are you usually likely to see a normal Sabbat, non-heretical Sabbat on, Path of Lilith, So
I've converted a few.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, it's not as common as like the core paths, right?
Oh yeah, no, the core paths, like you're gonna wind up running into Path of Cain. It's gonna be fucking everywhere. You can't get away from it, no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
Metamorphosis is gonna pop up. Piv is going to pop up like you wouldn't fucking believe.
Honorable Accord.
Onac's a little, you'll see that actually more in the cam, which is weird.
Yeah.
If you're doing it in a particular org, you'll see it more in the cam. Feral Heart's another one. Grey Hunter, which is a derivative of Feral Heart.
Right. I think though that
Scorched Earth is another good one though. That one I like.
I see a lot of Honorable Accord. Honorable Accord is I think it's one of my favorite paths for Sabbat.
Oh, it's a great one for Sabbat. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is a perfect cam one." No, it's actually great for the Sabbat.
Yeah, but then
you're looking at Sabbat as it's supposed to be.
But then you have paths for Sabbat that are hard to play on occasion in Sabbat. Cathari.
Oh, yeah. Cathari can be really hard to do in the Sabbat.
Cathari can be hard to do.
Very hard.
Because you're not.
Night is definitely difficult.
Yep, because in
Night
Cathari.
is usually so alien that you just can't. I've done it several times, and I still, to this day, am not 100% sure that I know everything there is to know about Path of Night.
There are derivatives of Path of Night that I really enjoy. Like my Salubrious Tribute that it still exists somewhere in the org is on Path of Night, Cold Path. So
I'd say I love Path of Night.
That's an interesting
Hot
thing.
Night, Righteous Night, that one's fun though.
Oh wait, I think he's on Righteous. I don't know. I have to see the sheet, but it's been like a year.
I could have swore your Salubri was Righteous Night.
It might be Righteous. Learn it from those Sombra buddies. But anyways, Cathari is hard to play in Sabbat generally because you're not supposed to kill people directly. You have to find ways that people lead themselves to their death through their sins, right? Yeah. And we played actually.
The two of us both.
Both were on Cathari, Bruhad and Zamisi. And
yeah, that was fun.
And those were crazy times, man.
Give them enough rope to hang themselves, and they oftentimes do.
And we did it with Sabbat as well, like other Sabbat. You know, if they're going to keep fucking up.
Games, that's great.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
Nobody ever saw it coming either.
They should have. I mean,
they really should have.
You know,
they never figured it out, and I'm sitting there going.
Yeah, we were all over the place. Cathari is a lot of fun, Jeff. Like I love Cathari. I think it's great for Zamisi.
There are a lot of paths that are a ton of fun, but they're very hard to play.
Yeah.
Like my favorite one, despite the fact that I'm a Sabbat ST, Path of the Dark Mother.
Yeah. That's difficult.
Path of Harmony is a good one, but that's hard to do in Sabbat. It can be done. Don't get me wrong. You can do it. It's just very difficult because you're going to wind up running into those assholes on Path of Cain.
No way. Easiest in Sabbat?
I've never found it to be an easy one to do in the Sabbat.
I'm gonna look up these times because I'm not as familiar with Path of Harmony.
I'm also going to pull up Path of Harmony.
All right, we're gonna do some research right now while we're doing this. Path of Harmony.
Sorry for the typing. I mean, it is a path that is designed to not butt heads. You're right. However, you cannot escape it.
So here's the problem already with Path of Harmony. At level 5, you can't be part of Sabbat.
Yep.
Both canine and human societies are unnecessary.
Attempting to alter the natural world, congratulations. You already do that by existing.
Predators do not seek danger. That'd be a level 3 sin in live action. That would really screw you over in Sabbat. So kill unnecessary. So at the low levels,
the actual guideline is not respecting a stronger vampire's domain.
Right. So
allowing gross disruption of the natural world. Please don't find anybody who has fucking blood magic.
On the low levels, like level in live action, anyways, in the 5-point scale, levels 1 through 2, perfectly fine in Sabbat, perfectly at home. Kill when you need to. Don't hesitate in killing. But once you get to 3, you're screwing yourself by being in Sabbat.
Yeah.
You're gonna be doing path checks all the time, especially if you're in a crusade. Hey, there's an elder over there, and your path says that's a stronger Cainite. Don't even bother. It's a better hunter.
Yeah,
but the Sabbat says right, but the Sabbat says you have to go. So that becomes an issue. Tabletop, that's like level 5, 6, 5, 5 and 6 would be 3. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that gets a little difficult. So Harmony,
It can.
yeah, the
I
we
mean,
had,
you can find a way if you're creative enough. You can find a way to make it work, especially if you keep them. Okay, I'm working towards 3 in alarm.
yeah, but
Oh
so
no, I screwed up. I have to drop back down to 2.
yeah, but then you get that
Find
whole
a way
like,
to get that.
but then you get that whole issue of like where you're metagaming the path play, right? Like
True.
it's like somebody on Path of Cain who has a 5th gen body in their possession that's completely torpid in state and can't defend itself. And they're like, I'm not going to Diablerize it. It's a humane vampire. Yeah, but if I do that, I'm getting NPC'd out. So I'm not going to do it. So
Path check.
you kind of
Every game you come into my game.
You kind
make
of
a
run.
path check.
Yeah, but still, like we've seen that happen like ad nauseum. Like it happens over and over, especially in an org game, where people
Oh,
are
yeah.
like,
I
well,
made those arguments with other STs. You saw me do it.
well, I'm just saying, like, for somebody coming in, like these types of things you have to watch out for because people will try to metagame their path to play the fun levels, but avoid the other stuff that can get them killed or have them turn into an NPC. So there's a balance of letting them pass, which is why I think you have to really kind of understand them and be comfortable with them so you can explain to your players, hey man, here's what's going on. I need to know from a character standpoint, like, what's going on with what you're thinking here? Because if somebody came to the Sabbat game I was running, tabletop, live action, doesn't matter, on Path of Harmony, and is like, yeah, I want to play Path of Harmony, I want to get a pirate, I would literally sit down and ask you, why? Why do you want to play this path? I mean, I get that it's fun, and I would accept that as, like, your reasoning, but then I'd ask, but, okay, I get that it's fun, but how does that fit in the Sabbat? Because...
Yeah, why are you still here? Why are you not an independent?
I think...
Why are you not an Autarchus?
And this kind of gets to that narrow focus of Sabbat, right? Where you really got to kind of drill down, like, what in your mind is going to be your Sabbat genre. Well, it doesn't depend on your pack, Jeff. I mean, so here's the thing. If you have a whole pack that's on Path of Harmony, you are one step away from being heretical. Because the path itself prevents you from fulfilling your duties as a Sabbat member. If the story being told is that you're playing heretics in Sabbat, 100% go for it. But if we're talking standard Sabbat, out the book, out the gate, just right out of the box, fresh with the wrapper, the way the Sabbat runs, if you can't perform those duties and refuse to do so on other bases, you are going to be killed. Because you can't act as a Sabbat member.
110%. And another piece of advice to a new storyteller in Sabbat, don't be afraid to kill the PCs.
Well, I mean...
Sometimes they need it to learn a lesson.
Yeah, I mean...
Don't go overboard, but don't be afraid to kill them.
Right. I mean, and that's why I think Sabbat is a lot more restrictive genre than Camarilla or Anarch.
Oh, yeah.
And those two, almost anything goes, obviously within reason for certain clans and certain storylines, but in Sabbat, there's a lot more things that get you killed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could piss on a fucking another vampire's shoes and they declare monmancy against you.
I mean, not that any priest would really let that through, but I mean, it's a possibility in a game. A monomacy, a contrition, man. Like, what do you mean monomacy? Like, come on.
Oh, no. Trust me, I know. You and I had that argument with the org more times than we could fucking count.
Yeah.
I declare monmancy. Are you sure you want to do that? Is that a good idea? There's no other avenue you could use.
Right. And
really?
And since that is a topic now, what do you think are the most abused things about the Sabbat genre when people run
fucking monmancy. Monmancy, 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 monmancy. This is literally it. Monmancy. I have walked into games, and it was before you and I played as Jonathan and Narada. I have walked into org games where I have sat through 5 or 6 fucking monmancy challenges in the same night. And I'm going, what in the actual... How the fuck do you get anything done? You're all killing each other. What's the point?
Right.
Monmancy gets way overused. Because, unfortunately, the Code of Milan, those who stick directly to the Code of Milan like it's fucking glue, follow the monmancy shall be used to solve all disputes. And it's literally even the slightest fucking dispute becomes monmancy. I cough in your general direction and you're declaring monmancy against me, and a priest lets it happen.
Well, so you gotta wonder at what point, and I agree with you, like 100% I agree with you. You gotta wonder at what point somebody gets beaten. You've only seen 4 in the games we played over the last decade. Wow. I've seen probably 10 times that number in like a handful of years in the org.
Years.
Yeah. Like
We
across
don't even talk about New York. We don't
we don't need to talk about New York, but like being active on the national list, especially in an org game, we saw that shit.
They finally said you can't declare Monmancy over the list. That was so nice.
We saw it fly around or join different games. Monsters getting declared left and right. I watched as an ST when I was playing an NPC. I got personally challenged as an NPC 3 times to Monmancy in one night.
Yep. I saw it happen as the HST of that game and went.
When I was playing Spark. And it was. Well, this was also. So it happens on a larger scale nationally, but even local levels, like. Seriously, 3 times in one night, I got challenged by 3 different PCs, and then the Sabbat decided to summon me to a location to try to jump me outside of Monamacy. So, and it didn't go well for them. But the thing is,
that was a whole different plot, though.
Right, same character, but different things that happen in the plot. But yeah, I've seen so many Monamacies, and we tried to like adjust that and have it be like, hey guys. Last-ditch effort. We started talking to our priest. And this is one of those situations where you kind of bring a storyteller caveat into things. Yes, the book says this, but because we've seen it abused so often, the third party that comes in, like the other priest outside that approves this, has to consider, are you depriving the sword of a potentially valuable asset for some minor insult that could be handled with contrition ritus?
Well, see, that shouldn't even be a thing that NPCs... Okay, so this is where I put more faith in my players. Then generally speaking, I probably should most of the time. However, that is a thing that as an ST you should never have to do, it's one of the things that I actually enjoyed about the org, was that they changed it so that it is the final verdict in a dispute.
Right.
It is literally the last ditch effort. I have tried everything else and nothing is solving this problem.
Right. And when I wrote the packet for V5 Sabbat, for us locally,
you put that in there, and it made me so happy. Contrition
rights became a higher right level.
Octoritis as opposed to an ignobilis.
Yep, because it was being utilized more often because Monamacy became only when absolutely there's no other way out.
And it always should have been. Like, the way I look at it is also very similar to Werewolf, right? Because it's the same. It's the pack structures, but you also have, the alpha of the area. That's your bishop, your archbishop, blah, 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 blah. So you look at it like also in werewolf terms, because they're basically the same thing, but 2 different sides of the coin. Yeah, I know. You're going to sit there and you're going to make this face at me.
Were you there for my werewolf diatribe last interview with Jeff?
I had you on in the background, but I think I was doing 5 other things at the same time.
Yeah.
So I love you to death, but I did not hear the diatribe. It's up on YouTube though, right?
It sure is.
Then I will have time tomorrow after work while I'm putting my house back together.
And I acknowledge I was going to hear it from werewolf players because I basically just said it's such a shit system.
No, that I can't disagree with.
No. I don't mean just mechanically. I mean thematically.
You and I can talk later.
I'm
probably sure I've heard this before.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real point discussing it. I mean, I know everybody's mileage may vary on different settings. Like people right now will probably be in chat going, Sabbat's stupid setting. Like, why would you ever want to play Sabbat? And we're like, Sabbat's awesome. Just like I know, like, hey, I'm like, Werewolf's stupid. Why would you play Werewolf? Because it's fucking dumb. And people are like, but Werewolf's awesome. And I'm like, you do you. So. So
when it comes down to it, if there's anyone over there that thinks Sabbat is stupid, please let me know, and I will gladly run something for you to change your mind, because a lot of it comes down to your STs.
We'll have chats about that, but...
I'll gladly have those conversations. But no, like, I look at it very much in those terms, right? There is actually a contrition right.
Right.
You use it for literally fucking everything, up to and including, I pissed off a spirit.
Right. Well, the problem with Sabbat, I think, was that they made their contrition ritus... an ignobilis. Right. Yeah. It's not one of the main rite. So that was a mistake. I always
said it had to be an actual rite. And to be fair, Games of Instinct, I think if I remember right, is also ignobilis, which is fucking stupid.
I think it's Octoritis.
No, because I think the Octoritis for those would be Polygrand and Festivo. I don't know why I blanked on that. I'm stupid. I apologize. I've been up since 5:30 this morning, so if I'm dumb over there in chat, I'm sorry, everybody. I love you all. Being a vampire means you don't have to say your side. That is incorrect. That is fucking incorrect. If you are a vampire, it means saying sorry a lot. Whether or not you mean it's a different story.
Game of Instinct is an Octoritis.
Oh. Good. I'm glad that stayed there.
Yeah, so alongside Festivo, Fire Dance, etc.
I actually always thought fire dance should be more of an ignobilus than octoritis.
You know, I'm back and forth.
Unless you're in a siege city, like, it's not that important.
Well, no, but it's also like it becomes a one-upman game, right? You know, when you're jumping through, it's kind of like it pushes the Sabbat to be more courageous against their typical Banes, which is why I think is obviously like the point of fire dance. I mean, aside from mechanically getting courage dies, you know, you try to conquer
You're showing that you have bigger balls than your brother.
Right, you're trying to show that you're not afraid of the Banes that could destroy you. You know, you're not afraid of death in service to the sword, or being around your brothers. So I mean that helps a lot. But yeah, right there, interesting. Favorite right.
Oh God.
And why?
Well, I do love Games of Instinct because you can have a multitude of different options with Games of Instinct. If we're going directly octoritis, as opposed to going favorite right period and a story.
Favorite right period.
Period? Oh God, the right of welcoming actually, because you can really put some flavor to it. Same deal with the Valdery.
But that's one that I rarely ever see being used. You know,
and
the
it should
welcoming
be used
right
way more often. It should be used far more often.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an awesome ritus. I just don't, and it's so personal to each pack. I just never see it being used.
Oh yeah, no. Which is stupid because it gives you more of a chance to put that flavor that is uniquely you or uniquely your pack and put forward what you are before you ever fucking say a word.
But see, I think we're packs, and this is something for new storytellers to keep an eye on too. I think packs put a lot more effort of that individuality into their Valdery ritus.
True.
You know, I think
not everybody gets to see the Valdery.
Well, you know, I actually haven't been to a live action game where there hasn't been a public rite, you know, a Valdery rite.
Right, but that's a public writer. You know, it's a public Valdery for the city. That's not a public Valdery for the pack.
No, I get that, but it's really, I mean, that's usually where a priest from a pack will take that opportunity to shine, right? You know, they'll put more of a thing into that. And again, like we're definitely defaulting to more of a live action mindset here, but I think in tabletop. Stuff like the welcoming ritus as a storyteller tool would be amazing to kind of highlight the subtle cultural differences between packs when you meet them. Because when you think about it,
I first learned that the welcoming ritus is the way it is because I'm in a pack of nomadic Sabbat, right? We don't have a specific place we call home. There's no specific city we call home. I go to a new city. What's the first thing that should happen? First pack I run into, welcoming ritus. Why are you here, brother? Why are you here, sister?
Because you're free Sabbat, fuck off. Which is a valid answer.
We will talk about factions in a minute.
Which is a valid answer. Valid answer.
I have words. I have words.
So, I think for me, my favorite ritus, unsurprisingly, sermons.
Oh, Sermons of Cain is my second favorite easily because you can put so much of a personal fucking spin.
Yeah.
I mean, you fucking saw me do it, and I wasn't even the priest yet.
Yeah, sermons I think is great for personal, you know, like getting you some personal stuff out there and putting a nice spin on how your pack views, you know, Cain's legacy. But also, it's a phenomenal time to potentially insult a bunch of opponents.
Oh yeah. Again, you saw me fucking do it.
Yeah.
As someone who was not even the priest yet.
So, in my opinion, like if a person's going to start storytelling Sabbat, the rite they should definitely get to know. Valdery, Sermons of Cain, those are the two hardest. I mean, because to roleplay them out. You can obviously do any rite, you know, by just throwing dice down or throwing chops, but I think that roleplay-wise, those rite are really important to the sex culture as a whole. Now, the welcoming ritus that...
Well, it becomes more of an injustice to just... And can I go on a diatribe for a minute?
Sure.
Cool. So there's a lot of shit that just gets hand waved in Sabbat.
Oh, thanks, Rubel.
Bonjour, mon ami. So there's a lot of shit that gets hand waved in Sabbat, and it drives me fucking up a wall.
Okay.
The Valdery should never be hand waved, ever. Yeah, okay, right? Are boring. You're doing it wrong. Just in general, you're fucking doing it wrong. if your Raite are so fucking boring that people are starting to check out and like zone out or be sitting there in their phones, or, you know, heaven forbid, actually falling asleep, which I have seen happen, you're doing it completely wrong. The whole point of a Sermons of Cain is to teach a lesson. Not necessarily just like a hard fucking lesson to be learned, but you're there to teach a lesson. You're there to jazz up the crowd and say, hey, Cain did this awesome shit. Why the fuck aren't we?
So can I make a counterpoint?
Sure.
A lot of some Sabbat players, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. You know, nobody really has a. I have to take this stance to be neutral. Nobody has a right or a wrong way to play Sabbat. There is genre accurate, and then however you homebrew it is really the way I'm going to put it. But if you're playing a genre accurate Sabbat, sure, Sermons and Cain are great, but there are still Sabbat members who just don't give a fuck. Like,
oh yeah, you can absolutely not give a fuck, and that's legit.
Right,
but when players check out, that's when I know there's a problem.
Well, you know, in live action especially, I think that there's definitely a subset of players that they're not there for the right day. They're there to whoop ass. They're there to throw sheet at problem and beat it down and be combat monster. Like that's, yeah, it's annoying, but it's truth. Like it's something that's very, very common, especially in Sabbat. Just like it's common in Guru.
Yeah.
I would argue more so in Guru.
Although to be fair, moots can get really fucking boring.
Right. So, but then you have that mindset right there about moots that can be applied to Raite as well, and I get it. Now,
make it exciting.
I think tabletop, depending on how often a pack Valkyries, if you're doing a Valkyrie every session because you really only have like your characters meet up once a month for their spot, sure. I can see where it's like we don't want to do a fucking Valkyrie every time we come play the table, you know, because then it can be like how do I do it this time? So yeah, I definitely see in some cases hand waving, you know, some Raite, but I think that at important moments or like when an important NPC shows up, like a cardinal or a Templar or an archbishop,
or even as an archbishop would be a good one, or a new pack comes into the city,
or a bishop says, "Show me your Valkyrie. I want to see if your priest is up to snuff." That could definitely be a good moment. So it's something.
Pack-specific Raite is a whole other thing we can talk about for literal days.
Pack-specific Raite are a lot of fun, and Russ brings up acceptance Raite is another one to put your personal spin on things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when
acceptance Raite for the fucking Wolves of Wall Street was fun as shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was so good.
And we put a test to it, which was a lot of fun.
You did. You put my feet to the fire and went, swim, bitch, and I went, okay.
Yeah. Get you your influence, give me a non-combat skill, and do some other shit, and then maybe we'll accept you. But
yeah.
So acceptance.
I already have this, and I'm a computer hacker. What?
Hack the door.
I did hack the door too.
That being said, when I wrote Sabbat for our group for V5, one of the things I put in there was this kind of like a blooding ceremony, right? Like, because I think that Sabbat, this was missing. I think this would be an awesome pack-specific Raite, especially for like Revised Edition Sabbat, V20 Sabbat, Live Action Sabbat. It was literally this idea that if we bring somebody new into the pack, you're a newbie, you're green, you're a piece of shit until we see you kill somebody that is worthy. You kill another vampire? Kill another vampire? Fucking awesome. We now blood your ass. Like, you get beat in, essentially. Like, now you're part of the pack. Now we know you're here with us, you know? And I think that that's a really cool, like, way to look at it, because a lot of Sabbat packs kind of do have a pseudo-gang mentality, where it's like, hey, especially the neonates, like, hey, we're in this together to kill all these fucking elders, to drink their blood and kill the fucking monsters that are sleeping beneath the sands. And, we need to make sure you can pull your fucking weight. So make it happen, Captain. Right, or, you know, find some other way to where you are useful to the pack. Your presence here means something, you know, to the pack. Yeah. And I think that those types of things, and that's where, like Russ is saying here, acceptance right, they become really, really cool, because it should be a big deal, especially if you're a new character coming into a pack. You're accepted. I mean, yeah, you're Sabbat. You'll get accepted because you're a brother and sister of Sword of Cain, blah, 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 blah. But you're really accepted into the family at that point. You know, like, you're part of the family of your pack. So
it's not just your family by marriage. No, you're now just considered a brother. Congrats.
Right. And I think that those Raite are just an awesome way to play things up. So
definitely,
really are. Definitely, I think that for people who are looking to run Sabbat, the right are going to be your real big key to help set that mood and to set the theme of the Sabbat, because it's a very religious sect.
Well, and a lot of it comes down to how do you flavor it. You know, a lot of what you've talked with me about is how do you make the setting? How do you do X, Y, Z? How do you introduce a new character? My answer is, generally speaking, with a right tag.
Yep.
So they can get to know the city and you can get to know them based on their responses. I mean, the first game, for those of you who have never played a game where Ray and I have both run it at the same time, also known as haven't played our Sabbat game, we did a whole fucking thing wherein we had Spark, the NPC that got challenged to Monmancy 3 times in one night.
Priest of the original NPC pack, yep.
Priest of the original NPC pack. And Shine, the priest of another NPC pack. And, you know, Spark was up there doing his thing, and Ray was amazing with it, by the way.
He's
a firebrand.
To get an idea for this character, this NPC was a Bruja anti-tribu, but anybody who watched Chronicles of Riddick, the Purifier?
That was basically Spark.
That was Spark, essentially. You know, he was the social guy. He would come in and convert. You know, he would come in and preach the positive sides of the sword and play down the negative sides, and he was a zealot for the cause, essentially.
Oh yeah. I mean, I played, and in that I played Shine, the NPC, who was a Nosferatu anti-tribu, who was literally designed to look like an anglerfish. Like, she even had a little dealy bopper. And he was sitting up there, you know, talking all about Cain and how Cain was great and this, that, and the other. He was on Path of Cain. And I just sat there in the back by a bunch of PCs who looked like they weren't so much into it and made little snide comments in the background, not loud enough to actually be heard until I wanted to be. And it was just little tiny seeds in the right where, like, Shine was sitting there going, "You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong, brother." And just saying little shit like that, because you can do that in a right. Like, just because this one pack puts it forward this way doesn't mean your pack does. Although,
yeah, but
Shine
you gotta
ulterior motives.
Yeah, you gotta
ulterior motives.
Not skirt the edge of heresy, though. Difference of opinions are fine. Difference of doctrine is
skirting
wrong.
it very closely.
Right. Oh, we have a question here. Russ asked, what would you do as an ST if you see a player getting stage fright in a LARP game? So, I'm up to...
A lot of it? Yeah, so I'll let you go first, and then I'll say my piece on it.
Yeah, there are two different ways to handle that, in my opinion. The first one is if it's a new player. The second one is if it's an experienced player. If it's a new player, if they are coming to play a priest for the first time, they're not sure how to do it, and they're kind of having that I don't feel comfortable getting in front of my other players and you know, doing the pontificating thing. Can I just throw the chops, or can I just roll the dice and just do the ritual that way? What I would say then is yeah, sure, you know, let's do that and take it in small steps. You know, give them a little bit of time to shine here. Just try to draw them out. Say, hey, we know you had a little issue with the doing the Valdery or the you know, the sermons of Cain, whatever the case may be.
You weren't quite sure what to do with it.
Right. What can I do to help you? You know, because the pack priest is an important position, and it actually helps everybody around the table when you get more comfortable and start, you know, doing the role play. So I would just give them slow, draw a little more time to shine here, a little time to shine there, and just slowly make those occurrences be a little more frequently, a little more social. So like Russ, in your case, if you're playing a priest and you're kind of getting a little bit like, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, we'd sit down and talk. You know, what are you uncertain about? How can I help? You know, where is it that you're finding a lack of knowledge? I can either point you in a resource, or I'll try to find, you know, an answer for you, one that we can both agree is a good answer, right? You know, to make a thing.
I agree with wholeheartedly. For a new player who's never played a specific role before, or has come in with, you know, all brand new players, and they decided, oh, this person's the priest.
Right.
Well, it's a very important role. It's very daunting, and I get that.
Right.
Because I have been there.
Yeah. Everybody
has.
As
a player, as a theater person, I've been there. You get thrown into a role that you're like, I was not ready for this.
Yeah.
What do I fucking do? And then that comes a lot with, you know, knowing improv and things like that. But it all comes down to slowly making them more comfortable with what's going on. So we go through the mechanics of, hey, here's what it does. Now you're comfortable with mechanics. Okay, cool. Now let's try putting a little bit of a personal spin on this. Not anything major. Just a little small flair. You know, you change up the Valdery cup. and it's something that more encompasses the pack led by you because you're the one leading this Vauldery. Okay, it's this little tiny change. It's something small you can get comfortable with easily. Now let's maybe change how you say your words. Let's see how that fits. How would the character say this? Don't think of it as you.
Right.
It's not you in this instance. It's the character. So let's be that character for a second.
Right. And I think in a case of more advanced players getting something down, that if they're a player that's been playing for World of Darkness for a while, but they're new to Vampire, I treat them the same way as I would a new player to the setting in general. If it's an experienced player getting stage fright, I'd see if it was a recurring thing or if it's a one-time thing, because everybody has a bad day. Everybody has off days.
Anxiety days hit, they happen.
Right. And if it becomes a common thing, I wouldn't want to punish a player by taking a position away from them.
No.
But
not for something like that. Not for something out of character.
You have to be aware that other players may jockey for that, and so I would have to again take like, hey, are you sure you want to play this position? I mean, I know that you've been having some hard times lately. I'm not going to
ready for this.
Right. Do you want to maybe tone it down and like we'll pair you with an NPC that can help you go through the motions. Like I had to do that with the Sabbat Archbishop I made, the Asmite Tribute.
Yeah.
Because we had two originally new Asmite Anti-Tribute players and potentially a third one, and they never played that part of the genre. I know Asmites very well, so I got approval from our coordinators in the organization to actually play a nationally level important Asmite Tribute, so I can bring them in to mentor these characters specifically in the ways of the Unconquered, the way they've been written up for OWBN. So that was a very specific thing I done, and it actually, these were experienced players that just weren't sure about that part of the genre, and so we made a story for them that they can learn through. They can experience what it's all about. Now we have a question.
And the genre is very wide in general.
Yes.
Which is another thing to bear in mind. For an older player who's maybe getting stage fright, agreed. If it's a one-time, one-off thing, I get it. Everybody has bad days. It fucking happens. If it's a matter of it starts becoming a recurring thing, you at that point in time, if they're a long enough player or you know them well enough, you can take them aside and say, hey, is everything okay? What's going on?
Yep.
Okay, there's this big important ritus coming up. You're nervous about being, on stage for it. Why don't we take some time outside
or practice?
Game
Yep.
and practice.
Yep.
Which is the same thing you would do in the theater.
Yeah.
It just takes away that element of improv and becomes more scripted, which sometimes makes it easier.
Yeah. We do have a question here. What's a Vauldery? Oh, that's a great question.
Hello, Boobel.
Yeah.
You know Vampire, right?
Do you?
I think Boobel is actually one of the people who does know Old Wad. I think Boobel and I have talked about it before, but Boobel was speaking with me about Cam, not Sabbat.
So I'm going to use that as a backdrop then. We're going to make some assumptions here. You played Large Sabbat was one time ago. Okay. So when playing Sabbat... So when playing Sabbat, they all have kind of like this pseudo blood bond to one another in a pack, right? It keeps the pack strong and it keeps them protected from being bloodbound by outside parties. So what they do is Lujo's Bloodbreaker, I think it's Bloodbreaker. Lujo's developed the right to basically take blood from all the members of a pack, right, the group, and mystically, I guess, charge it. Is it Bloodbreaker? Thanks, man.
It is Bloodbreaker.
So Lujo's, but so what the ritual does is it starts degrading the blood bonds that you already have on you until you're free, but it also simultaneously starts binding you, sort of, to every other member in the pack. So you start having these blood bond-like affections or like predispositions towards members of your pack, but it's a shared bond.
But never to the point that you are completely subservient to them and 100% in love.
Right. It can make it to where you'll...
blood bond.
It can make it to where you'll die for them, and that's hard to plot against them or plot their deaths, but it's not quite that level of artificial love of the blood bond. It's not quite as intense. And it's always variable. So like in tabletop...
Or is it as long lasting, actually?
Yeah. In tabletop, you roll to see how strong your bond is to each player that participates in the Vauldery. In live action, you do challenges to see if your bond goes up or goes down to people that are in the Vauldery. And so basically, the priest comes in and they recite over a chalice. It's usually somehow stylized to represent the pack. and then every member bleeds into the pack as well, into the chalice as well from the pack, and then everybody again takes turns, like saying something usually, and then taking a sip and passing it on, and they basically all drink from the punch bowl.
Now, when we say stylized, I don't mean somebody went to fucking Party City and bought one of those giant pimp cups and that's their Vaulderie cup. I have seen it happen before. But that should be a rare thing.
Unless that's your
Please
pack's
don't do
thing,
it.
you know. I mean, not gonna
I
shit
don't
in
want to
somebody's
tell you
pack.
how many I've seen in the org like that. It disappoints me. I thought these people were more creative than that.
A lot of things disappointed me, but
Mood.
yeah, that's pretty much a Vaulderie. And so that's the most important, I would say, right Tay and the Sabbat,
Oh.
because of what makes your Sabbat.
I would join your pack. You could join my pack. My pack is cool.
Crunk pack for life. Yes, it happens a lot. Or the
I have a
bedazzled
nail-
cups.
I have a cuticle pusher and I will stab people with it. Do not tempt me.
Yeah, so it's definitely a thing I've seen. We
Oh,
actually went to the dollar store for our game.
Entire fucking... Yeah, we did.
Or Goodwill.
There
We
was
went to
that
Goodwill
entire-
and bought a cup.
Yeah, it was Goodwill. And it was actually a really cool cup too. I'm kind of sad that we gave it over to the following STs who have
we went
probably
to the
lost
game.
it since then. But no. In another LARP, I played Malkavian. I had one Tremere blood bonded to me because he wanted to learn dementation.
That's a stupid Tremere.
That's a very dumb Tremere. I mean, to be fair, I have also made that happen as
For
my
two
long-term
reasons.
Malkavian.
Two reasons. One, learning dementation. Two, getting blood bond to Malkavian. It's not a happy bond, especially
I've done that more than once.
what's
It makes me so happy.
what's the flaw they have where the person who's bound to them gets their derangements.
It's not the person who's bound them. It's actually anyone you feed off of, and it's infectious bite.
I thought there was like another one, but
That was homebrewed for the org.
empathic link.
Empathic link. Yeah, I've seen that one floating around too. That's not actually written down in the Malk book.
Well,
But yeah, no, it can get pretty nasty.
yeah, a lot of that stuff. Like, don't ever drink from
I
Malkavian.
love it. Hey, if you ask a Malk to learn dementation, the answer is either yes or I'm a teapot. Hey, you're not wrong. Usually my answer is, are you sure?
I would just ask why.
Oh, I never ask why. I just ask, are you sure?
I do gotta say, writing from Malkavians was difficult, but it went well.
It went very well. I was very proud of you for that.
Yeah, that's.
I had never seen Ray, for the record, those of you in chat. I was the HSC of the game. Ray was my ASC. I had never seen him write a Malkavian. Ever. I've known him for years, and I've never seen him play a Malkavian. I've never seen him write a goddamn Malk.
Oh, I've played a Malkavian, and I scared the piss
Not
out
around
of a
me,
player.
you haven't.
No, old school Tuesday night game. I played a Malkavian, and I was. Jeff should remember this because it was when I want to say Bob was playing a Bali.
I'm slowly realizing that my eyeliner's on.
But anyways, I was playing
on.
Malkavian, and this guy, and I had religious I had a religious compulsion, and this guy
That's a fun one.
got put into a Shroud of Night from a Sombra buddy of mine, and I waited in with heightened senses and Eyes of the Beast so I can see. And while
Guess
he
that's
was
the way you do it.
while he was staked on the ground, the player's actually laying on the ground, and I'm like, hey, can I I'm gonna
Can I
touch
touch
you
you?
as part of this role play. Is that cool? He's like, yeah. So I kind of crouched over his chest, and I started like miming like I was writing stuff all over his face. And while he was in the shroud, he got staked, so he's laying there. And as the shroud went down, I crouched over so he can hear me, and I started whispering all this crazy like Viggo Mortensen from the Prophecy, "I love you more than Jesus" type shit to him. And I scared the shit out of the player. He's like, dude, that was. Can we not? I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. It's
Dude,
cool.
You would nerf our players. Now, again, reminder to those of you in chat. It's the first time I've ever seen Ray play a Malkavian, portray a Malkavian, or write
Oh
a Malkavian.
yeah,
You literally
Dimitri.
unnerved people just sitting there doing this.
Yeah, Dimitri.
It was the weird, first of all, I had never seen Ray act like that, and I was just like, who the
What?
fuck are you?
I knew it was. He's a crazy fucking Sabbat Malkavian on Path of Lilith. He's just.
To be fair, that whole pack was Path of Lilith. And it was my favorite thing ever.
he was just Dimitri, man, and he was nuts.
That was a weird curveball the players threw us. I literally built Shine and played Shine as the snarkiest bitch on the planet.
Well, yeah. Then they're like, we want to be your friend.
So they hate me, and they're like, we love Shine, and I'm like, what the fuck is
Right.
wrong with each
But-
and every
but-
one of you?
But let's take a
Wait
step
minute.
back.
There's some heresy here.
Let's take a step back, because this is also a lesson to be learned here for potential storytellers.
Yeah.
We made this
The
pack.
NPCs you think they're gonna fucking hate?
We made this pack to be. We made this pack to be bad guys, right? And when the players saw them, they liked them because they were like Sabbat. They're like, hey, these guys are just being fucking Sabbat. They're not trying to force shit down people's throats. They're just accepting everybody as they are. They're just cool Sabbat. And then the pack that we made to be their allies, they fucking hated and left to
Hated.
die.
Yeah.
So I was like,
It's the weirdest fucking- I'm going, why? I have done nothing but talk shit about each and every one of you to your faces.
they left the
Several
other
of you
pack
are
to
on
die.
Piv. What is wrong here?
My mom decided to do a voodoo rite in the middle of a museum. I cut my hand and while food going, ha ha ha! That's great.
Nice.
That's
To be
great.
fair, I have baptized people in a shower of glitter.
Yeah, but you got to be careful because I got really a stern talking to for taking the prop game seriously. One game, I was playing a Satanist Tremere and I bought a Satanic Bible
okay.
to game, and I read a passage. We made up.
Oh,
we,
which one, the Levian?
Well, the Satanic Bible. So there's a curse in there about crushing your enemies, and it's a prayer. And I read it to a Tremere. I was playing a Tremere. He was playing a Tremere. There was a Gangrel too, and I basically tricked them out of game and in game into believing that I cast a spell on them that if they ever betrayed me, I would immediately know. And we got by doing that because I was able to convince them in character, and then out of game is like, is that a thing? I'm like, let's talk the ST. What's your thumb lore at? What's your lore's at? The ST's like, it's a real thing, I
Seems
guess.
legit.
Yeah, it seems
Seems
legit.
legit, bro.
And so I read this passage, and the player came to me afterwards and was like, can you never do that again? If we do a ritual, can we just kind of say it happens? I'm like, why, what's up? I'm like, were you uncomfortable? He's like, yeah, he's a hardcore Christian. And here I am reading from the Satanic Bible. So you got to really kind of take your audience into play whenever you do like prop stuff or even in some cases role play, because you don't really know where people are at, in life. And I think it brings up to a great closing point here to talk about, which is the idea of a black card. And you're a huge proponent of this.
Yes, I am. I am both a huge proponent of it and a huge causer of it.
Right.
Admittedly.
And if I can stop you for just a
go into
second.
detail.
If I can stop you for just a second here. So the reason the black cards are getting, I think, more known and talked about now, especially in games like Sabbat, where you can get into some really intense subject matter, some really intense role play, is this idea of comfortability and consent in role play. Now, back in the day, when you would go to a live action game, not a lot of storytellers allowed players to walk off from a scene without having there be some sort of penalty.
Right.
I've actually
Usually your character gets punished, or like it was literally as you left, your character left.
Right. Now, black cards, I think, are kind of a hot topic in some circles of LARPing, because some people are like, you're playing the role of darkness, you should be fine about it. And other people are like, hey, just because the role of darkness doesn't mean you have to be an asshole to you and be insensitive. So let's talk about the black card. What's a black card?
So the black card is something that they actually did instate in Mind's Eye Theater. Believe it or not, it is actually in there stating that a player, if they are uncomfortable, can walk away at any time. That is something that has been ignored over the years. But the black card is basically, I as a player, or I as an ST, am describing a thing to you, right? And it's something that, I don't want to say the word triggers because it has such bad connotations these days, but it's something that makes you so supremely uncomfortable that staying is detrimental to you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to say, I need a black card, like I need a black card out of the scene. And I get it, because like I have done it in several cases. I have, as a player, done horrible things as a Sabbat character, said it to the STs. The STs are later than having the same thing that I just did investigated by another player, and as they are describing it, the players have had to black card the STs. Like, I am no holds barred when it comes to those things.
Right.
But if a player looks at me and goes, I am uncomfortable with this, I need to step away. I, as an ST, I, as a player, go, okay, I get it. Your character is still here. I'll give you a short form later.
Right.
Because I don't want to make you, as a player and another human being, uncomfortable.
Yeah, and even before that became more of a thing that gained more and more, I guess, traction of the recent years. 10, 15 years
Traction,
ago,
prevalence, whatever you want to call it.
10, 15 years ago, I ran a mage game, and I had to have somebody black card me. So,
it's kind of a feather in your cap when that happens as an ST, because you're describing it so well, but at the same time, you feel like an asshole for doing it.
Well, kind of, yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, because in my mind, like, this should be fair game. It wasn't like there are certain things that I won't do as a storyteller. I don't play around with sexual assault of any nature.
No.
And I don't play around with, like, let's put it this way, unwanted pregnancy type scenes. I don't deal with that shit. But this was a gruesome scene where they came across a death scene. And for me, I'm like, I'm somebody who likes watching true crime stuff, and I like horror movies. I like slasher movies. I actually like the Saw films. I know you can't watch them, but I adore them.
That's only because I have my own hang-up
with torture porn.
Because I got duct taped to a chair. No, I got duct taped to a chair and forced to watch 1 through 4 back to back.
Fair enough. But
it's my own trauma. Thank you.
But like I got asked, like, hey, can I step out? This is a little uncomfortable for me. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Before I even knew it was in, like, yeah, it just was human decency to me. So the fact that the black card got so much flack to me is like, why? But
because you have to, and it's the stupidest thing, but there's edgelords everywhere.
Yeah.
There are people that do shit just to be edgy and just to be like jabby about everything, and it's like, look, motherfucker.
And the gaming community has its own share of that. And if it's one caution I would give about that to like a newer Sabbat storyteller, watch out for that from your players. You may get the players who think that this is the whole reason they play Sabbat is to do stupid, grotesque stuff without any sort of punishment.
I have had.
You can still control your table,
games. Oh yeah, I have had in games in LARPs. I have had like 2 packs of Sabbat go out and do this thing, and like they're torturing this cami to get information. And I had one player take it way too fucking far, way too fucking fast. That I, as an ST, had to go, no. We are putting a stop to this right now. That's not fucking happening.
See,
try again.
That's why I think this is funny, because when the torture ability first came out, I was like, why would you need that? For situations like that, you just throw the chop. You don't need to go into what you're doing. We're just going to say you're just torturing the person. Let's just, every chop you win takes away one of their willpower. Or, the way it runs in tabletop, I think is similar. Like they lose willpower instead of damage with torture. And once they get out of 0 willpower, they start answering your questions.
Like I, as an ST, I was sitting there watching it and watching the faces of my players. Because that's one of the things you do as an ST, is you learn to read the faces of your players.
Yeah, you read the table.
And it's not just the player as the character, it's the player, as the person. And you start to learn what makes them uncomfortable, what makes them not uncomfortable. What they're cool with, and what's kind of teetering on that edge and walking the real fine, like, razor sharp line. But like, that was one of those moments that, like, I was slowly watching the rest of the group start to kind of get that look. And it's hard to describe as an ST what the look looks like, but you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing else it can be.
I think reading a table is an acquired skill, and if you're got the fortune of being a player for a while before you're a storyteller, you kind of get to feel like, how the group's feeling about a story or what a scene that's unfolding. And you get a little more like used to like seeing stuff from other players, and you can use that when you're ST to kind of watch your players and kind of get a feel for it. But if you haven't played with the people before, or the new group, or whatever the case may be, you need to start paying attention to your players' tics when you're describing stuff, because that will let you pick up not only when they're offended, like this case, or like trying to check out, but when they're like bored, when they're like really excited. Like, it helps you gauge when to shift gears in your storytelling.
Yeah. When to shift to just an overarching description, when to go further into how you're portraying an NPC,
right,
or back off. It becomes a very delicate skill, and especially when it comes to things that, black card, I'm always on the lookout. I've always been on the lookout because I understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are certain things that I've run across as a player that I look at STs and go, no, my character's here. Just give me literally the like too long didn't read.
Right.
Because I'm not gonna do this.
Well, we did run over by about 20 minutes, so
I could literally talk about Sabbat all damn day.
yeah,
so
I'm actually thinking in the future we may do just some roundtables with just people and just talk game shit, storytellers and players, things like that. But thank you guys for coming out. If you haven't checked it out yet, there is actually a YouTube video of last week's interview up on my YouTube channel, which is just Storyteller Calthus. Just do a search for that; it'll pop on up. There's also a link in my About tab down below, and there should be one on the channel description itself. So that being said, thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jesse, for coming out and spending time with us. Guys, if you haven't already, please swing
I
by.
don't do magic, Morty. I do science.
It's a
One takes
cheer
brains,
to
other
end the
takes
night.
dark eyeliner.
And if, in addition to cheering, please check out Imara at twitch.tv/ImaraRavenfire. Follow her, subscribe. She plays a lot of horror games, a lot of fun stuff, and also some crazy shit.
You how to set up a shout out command.
Yeah, I got to do my my chat bot, but this is also for people who are watching on YouTube. So that being said,
I'm easy to find. I'm over here in chat, folks.
Yep. Oh, thank you for following, Queen Bee. Appreciate it, man. That's awesome.
Hello, Queenie.
So
I'm gonna eventually get this guy back in Dead by Daylight. It's gonna happen.
Maybe. So that being said, let's find somebody to raid before our time is up entirely.
Yeah, actually, let me look over on my sidebar. Oh, Puffy is playing right now, and it looks like he's doing Sword Art Online.
Let's see who I got on mine.
Tactics. Greg from How to Drink is doing Cyberpunk Red.
Oh, let's go. Yep. All right, we're going to watch some Cyberpunk. Or watch some tabletop RPGs, guys. /raid.
I'd say I need to get you into a game too, Jeff. We're gonna have some fun. It'll be great.
Here we go. Blip. Hopefully that popped up. I see it somewhat.
Yep, I see it on my end. You're good.
All right, guys. Give Greg some love, man. He's one, a great fucking guy. Like, he does a lot of great stuff for How to Drink, and two, he's actually running tabletop games on Twitch. So how can you just say no, right? I mean, it's awesome. So, and we're going in 2 and 1 and boom.
Et voila.